The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Well, glad you could join us. I'm Bill Martinez. We're continuing to pursue the truth no matter where it leads on your behalf, because as you know, knowledge is power. And as we've been saying repeatedly on the show, and I guess that this will be our mantra, is that you must own your own knowledge. So whatever you hear from me or any of our experts, our lineup of expert guests, remember, hopefully this is what motivates you to own the knowledge. Don't just take our word for it, because then you're just spouting off 8-second sound bites, and you're a lot more intellectual than that. So, today, for example, we've got Lloyd Richardson. Lloyd is a China expert, a diplomat during the Reagan years. He's a lawyer, so don't hold it against him. He's got global clients for over 20 years, and he's also an author. And we're going to talk about some of his books in just a moment, which really draws from his experience of China. Lloyd Richardson, welcome to the show. Good to have you with us.
Hey, Bill. How are you today?
Hey, I'm doing terrific. I'm so honored that you can join us to, share with our international audience, our national and international audience via this TV show, your expertise, so that we can get a clear understanding of the threats that China is holding in the balance against the United States.
Well, thank you, Bill, and it really is good to be here today. To flesh out, I guess, my background a little bit. I want to mention to the folks who are with us that I've been in the China field really since 1969, which, if you stop and think about it, was 3 years before even Richard Nixon thought to go to China. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
And I did some undergraduate work in Asian history and Chinese, and then during the 1980s, I was in the Foreign Service during the Reagan presidency, where I worked on Taiwan arms sales and had some other interesting times.
Mm-hmm. Well, Lloyd, if we can for just a second, can we talk a little bit about the beginnings of your experience with China? I had a dear friend that I went to high school with, and he led a lot of tours through China during that early time when you had quite the revolution taking place, and China trying to figure out, well, did they really want to, participate in a free market or not? Because up to this point, it was all pretty much, governed by Chairman Mao, right?
It was. And, just to provide a little context, it's important for people to remember that in the first 25 years of Chinese communist rule, they killed 80 million of their own people.
Right.
I guess that was just to get their point across.
You think?
Yeah. So in the period I think you're thinking of in the 70s, of course,
right,
after Nixon's trip, there was some initial contact during the 70s, and then of course eventually we were de-recognized, by the way, Taiwan as the Republic of China in 1978, and then established diplomatic relations with mainland China, what they call the People's Republic.
Right.
In 1979. So yeah, that was a kind of an unusual time. I was actually in Taiwan for some of that time in the early 70s, and then again for a couple of years in the early 80s. So I got to see that up close. And I had a good friend in the Foreign Service who had the misfortune of being in Taiwan in 1978 when they de-recognized. So he recounts how that was kind of a difficult time to be a diplomat.
Exactly. Well, help us a little bit, because you were there in the country, and as that was happening, because as my friend related to me, I mean, it was a little comical. We were having dinner, and he's talking about how the people were getting into kind of the free enterprise markets a little bit, and people would be selling chickens, and he'd go to their homes, and there would be these rooms loaded up with chickens in cages. I mean, there wasn't any kind of, regulation per se, but they were just, they were excited about, this new business opportunity.
Well, I guess one thing that's worth reinforcing, the Chinese as a people, of course, have been around for 3,000 or 4,000 years. So
Right.
My experience with them has always been that they are an extremely entrepreneurial people, but you really have to distinguish between what the Chinese people are like and what their government has been doing for the
Exactly.
last 75 years.
Mhm.
And I will say that one of the things I like to call it the big lie. There are so many of them, of course, out there in the real world, but the big lie about China is that there is a private sector, because that's just not true.
Mhm.
Any kind of economic activity, really down to the most granular level, is controlled by the government. And one of the things that you saw very early in the 1980s and late 70s, as U.S. businesses started to go and try to do business in China,
Mhm.
is they always had a partner. There was no such thing as just going the way you would here in the U.S. and you open your own business. It doesn't work like that in China.
Right.
Never has.
Yeah.
You always have a partner. The bad part about it is you really never know who that partner is. But I can assure you that if not the partner, then the partner's partner,
Mhm.
member of the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a personal kleptocracy. It's the way they
Mhm.
make money as members, as cadres, as high-level officials in the Communist Party, is by
Mhm.
controlling all this economic activity.
Exactly. Lloyd, how did we go into this so blindly? I mean, were we just so excited in seeing, the billions of people, or, over a billion people, and all the potential commerce that was going to have, that we ignored the obvious? What is it that Richard Nixon saw that somehow didn't translate?
Well, Nixon, and I guess maybe more to the point, Kissinger,
Mhm.
uh, saw the Chinese as a way to foil what was going on with the Soviet Union at the time, right? And that was
Right.
the first impulse was strategic. But for the rest of us, that's kind of a small matter overall.
Mhm.
The thing, but I think you've really hit the nail on the head there, Bill, because there is an illusion that not just the US, but others in the West have had for literally hundreds of years. It's such a massive population, still the largest in the world, right?
Right.
1.4, 1.5 billion people, depending on what day you count.
Exactly.
And there's been this notion for really 200 or 300 years, starting with the English mercantile class. The old saying, if you could just add an inch to the shirt tails of every Chinaman, they used to say the mills of Lancashire would run for 100 years, right?
Mm.
So there is a lot of, I think, of wishful thinking that goes into it for our commercial interests here in the United States. But some of it is, I think, just we're naive.
Mhm.
I mean, as a people, maybe naive is not the right word. We like to
Well,
think
I
the
think it's
best of
almost fair,
people,
Lloyd,
right?
because whether we're talking, the Middle East or other countries, somehow we want to impose our sense of liberty and the Constitution, and impose our worldview on them without even realizing, the thousands of years of how they got where they are, and what they believe in, right? I think if anybody's naive, yeah, we're probably naive in that sense.
So Bill, so what about nation building over the last 20 years have you seen that you thought was foolish?
That's right.
Nation building, yes. Let's
Yeah.
just import this institution and click it in over here.
Yes.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah, it's all these expensive theories. This is what drives me nuts, and especially where we are right now, we're operating in the realm of the theoretical. And I think that this was probably one of my biggest issues with the Obama administration, was like everything that they operated on was based on a theory. And it's no wonder that the critical race theory and all these other Marxist ideas that are all theoretical, that abandon empirical evidence and past knowledge, goes out the door. And let's do something, revolutionary here, and go off half cocked. And let's take away everybody's car, for example, like the latest news coming out of New Jersey. Lord have mercy. The governor signed a bill, a dictum. I should say it's not even a bill. It's just he declared it to be so, signal from on high that
So it
by
must be.
2035, all in New Jersey would be operating off of electric vehicles. And it's like, well, did anybody stop to consider, like, are you going to have enough product for the state of New Jersey to be operating on EVs?
So, Bill, I'll tell you something quick, like about EVs, because that's a real hot button for me. What
Okay.
people don't seem to realize, a lot of especially the younger generation, think that electricity comes out of the wall receptacle. So if you have an electric car, right, you just plug it in and that solves your problem, right? But where do they think the electricity comes from? I can tell you, it comes from fossil fuels in generation plants that are hundreds of miles away, and you have line losses, and you ship that electricity over to my wall receptacle, right? So, yeah, don't get me started on EVs.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to poke you in the eye with that.
No, don't let reality get in the way of a good time, right?
Exactly. We're talking with Lloyd Richardson, a China expert, a diplomat during the Reagan years. Been in China, for 5-6 decades, Lloyd?
In the field, yes. Although I
Yes.
tried to make an honest living during at least a part of that time, Bill.
But I'll tell you, hey, you're an expert, and we need to hear from you as to what's going on. So let's pick up the story in terms of how we got here. We talked about the Nixon years. I guess we were hopeful that somehow we were going to convert the Chinese. Kind of amazing. It must have been insulting to them in the back rooms. They must have thought, how arrogant. These people from the West think that all of a sudden they're going to come here and, convert all our thinking after thousands of years, right?
Right. What is that term? You just plug and play, right? Yeah. That's all there is to it. Well, you've already hit on the big part of it. I think there's a lot of wishful thinking, and that's true whether it's in the commercial realm or the idea that if we somehow liberalize the economy, that means that the political system becomes more liberalized.
Yeah.
Obviously, that hasn't worked out very well. But I tell you what really gets my goat about what's going on with China is that you and I are paying for China's global aggression. I don't know how else to put it, right?
Yeah,
we have this massive trade deficit. We ship all these dollars every year to China, billions and billions of dollars, and they turn around and use it against us, to buy off countries everywhere around the world. So
exactly.
It's
and then we borrow money from them and pay them in interest, and we supply the funds for their army that's going to come against us down the road. Somehow,
not just money, but also the technology. I mean, that was the worst part about being. And this was in the Reagan administration in the 80s. You could already see the Department of Defense here. All these little careerist officers going, oh, if I get involved with the China relationship, and I get to know some people there, then I'll get promoted, right? I mean, it's careerism, plain and simple.
Exactly.
And in the U.S. government and U.S. business, that has played a role since the very, very beginning. So in addition to wishful thinking, there's another factor that, you can put on
Lloyd,
your list.
They led with their greed, and the Chinese were smart enough to see what they needed and how they could gaff the American people. Here it was, America thought, well, China, what do they know? How unsophisticated are they? We're going to go over and take over them. And meanwhile, they spread tentacles and they take over us by taking advantage of our greed, beginning to, buy up elected officials, support their campaigns, get them to be beholden, to their interest. And now here we are today with over 40 Confucius Institutes and some of our most top-rated academic institutions in the country. We had 6 or 7 police stations. They have ripped us off blind 3 ways to Sunday. I mean, it was kind of amazing to me because even when Donald Trump came on the scene, it was stuff that they all knew and ignored, and they wwere willing to accept until Donald Trump decided to, poke them in the eye and raise some discomfort about how, the communist Chinese were ripping us off, right?
Well, and you talk about intellectual property. Where has all the U.S. intellectual property gone? I mean, Trump at least was smart enough to emphasize that as an issue, but that started day one. I mean, if a U.S. company went into China to build a business, part of the deal was after 10 years, you had to turn over your intellectual property to your local partner, right? Yeah. But beyond that, what's wrong with the picture? Stop and think about this, Bill. You have 30% of all foreign students in the United States today, as we sit here. 30% of them are from mainland China. mostly in the sciences, mostly at the graduate student level, where they will come out and through our green card system get jobs in the United States, primarily in sciences and technology. So does anybody see any problem with the potential for intellectual property loss? Dare we call it spying?
Yeah. Yeah. And whatever they don't capture, we'll just send over a balloon, just for a look-see, right?
That's right. That's right. Don't even get into balloons. The balloon incident would have been funny, except for the path that balloon managed to take across the continental United States. It did get, I guess, near one or two sensitive facilities in that time, right?
Yeah.
But don't worry, because our president only took $50 million from the Chinese. So
exactly.
So no worries.
And here, all this sophisticated military equipment and spy equipment that we have, it takes what, a local farmer in Montana just to look up into the sky.
Right. Right. Where were the F-16s? Where were the F-22s? Where were the F-35s? No, the farmer notes it. Yeah. Hey, there's a balloon up there.
Well, where they are, they had to wait until a Hobby Lobby balloon that cost $12 went up there, and then they shot off $250,000 worth of armaments. No wonder we're running low on ammunition. Forget about what we give away to Ukraine, right?
Right, exactly.
Oh, this is hysterical. I'm telling you, Lloyd, if this wasn't true, I mean, they would think that, probably some people think we're making this stuff up because it just sounds so outlandish.
That's one of the challenging, when if you try to write novels about this stuff, Bill, it's kind of hard to come up with something that looks like it's just imaginary, because the reality is so much more bizarre, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and speaking of writing, we've got about 3 minutes before we go to break here. Let's spend a little time. Let's talk about, you've got a series, 3 books that you've written, and tell our viewers about the series.
Well, just quick, it's funny, you mentioned the Obama administration, and I think my frustration with our foreign policy during that period is finally what set me off enough to start doing this. But I wrote the first one, I guess, back in 2010, but the idea is obviously you want to try to write a story that's entertaining for people, but there are 3 books in the series, hence the name, the Adam Chin Trilogy. There's a connection there,
right?
And and so what I was trying to do is just sort of, in telling the story, just kind of highlight for people how pervasive China's influence is everywhere.
Right.
Everywhere around the world. So the first novel, for example, is set in Pakistan and India, right?
Mm-hmm.
And actually the Chinese invade northern Pakistan is how the thing sort of kicks off. But and then there's one in Central Asia. The second book is in Central Asia and Turkey and in Iran. And then the final one, which I just released, is set in East Africa, but always sort of indicating how the Chinese are involved in the bad things that are happening in those places.
Well, and of course, this brings to additional light here, Lloyd, the whole Belt and Road Initiative, doesn't it?
Yeah. Again, coming back to where all the U.S. trade dollars go, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So those are U.S. trade dollars that the Chinese are recirculating to buy off other countries, right? And so let's build a road all the way across, from East Asia to Europe, and then all the countries in between, and connect it all up. But that, of course, has nothing to do with the Chinese being able to assert influence in these countries, right?
Yeah. Can you say infrastructure?
Yeah. That's sort of my business as a lawyer. So it sort of really strikes home for me, I have to tell you.
Right. Well, because the thing is that whether we're talking, the Belt and Road Initiative from the Chinese, or we're talking, the cartels, their operation, their infrastructure that crosses our southern border and goes into just about every state of the union, that infrastructure is designed to produce specific results. And it's clear what kind of result China is expecting, right?
Absolutely. They buy and sell, and that's exactly what they do. And I know when we get a minute, I don't know when your break is coming up exactly.
Well, actually, we're coming up right now. So let's go ahead.
Okay.
We'll hit the pause button. We'll pick it up from there. More from Lloyd Richardson after this. Stay with us.
Do you have heart failure and often hear,
"Those stomach issues ruined your birthday"?
"You're too tired to play catch, Grandpa."
"Sweetie, you haven't touched your tools since the carpal tunnel syndrome diagnosis."
If these seemingly unrelated symptoms sound familiar, talk to your cardiologist and ask about transthyretin amyloid cardiomyopathy, or ATTR-CM, a rare and underdiagnosed disease that gets worse over time. Learn more at connecttoyourheart.com. That's connecttoyourheart.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-699-0358. 800-699-0358. 800-699-0358. That's 800-699-0358.
President Biden recently released a massive $6 trillion budget, the largest budget in U.S. history. And guess who pays the bill? That's right, you, the American taxpayer. American citizens and business owners will be paying more taxes. That's a fact. And if you owe back taxes, they will be coming after you to collect payments. In fact, President Biden also hired thousands more IRS agents to go after you. If you got a letter from the IRS and you know you owe back taxes or you haven't filed in years, don't put your head in the sand. Call us today. We've saved our customers millions of tax dollars. One quick, free phone call will show you how we can reduce your past tax bill and save you thousands. Guaranteed, or you pay nothing. Call now.
800-932-1597. 800-932-1597. That's 800-932-1597. Paid for by the Tax Helpline. How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-699-0358. 800-699-0358. 800-699-0358. That's 800-699-0358.
Well, welcome back. Bill Martinez here. Great to have you with us. For more information on the show, you can check it out, BillMartinezShow.com. You know, certainly America has had its fair share of antagonists, from Russia to Afghanistan, Iran to ISIS, but none has matched the aggression and overt ambitions of China. They've captured our manufacturing, intellectual property, corporate military intelligence, established over 40 Confucius Institutes in our colleges, at least 6 local police stations within America, and a targeted plan to elite capture our elected officials. We have Lloyd Richardson with us, a China expert, a diplomat during the Reagan years, and a lawyer with with global clients for over 20 years. Also, an author that we've been featuring his latest series, 3 books that I highly recommend. There's some opportunity when you're able to present history in a bit of a narrative in a novel type form, because it does allow you some liberty, but nonetheless, you can still be true to the facts, right, Lloyd?
That's exactly the intention, Bill. Right.
Mhm.
And I was actually, you just before the break, you were talking about the Belt and Road Initiative, and I would just like to highlight, I guess, one little piece of good news. I was in East Africa, in Nairobi, for about a year, about 10 years ago, so 2011 and 2012.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I think really woke me up was how pervasive the Chinese were. They'd been there 20 years, working away, establishing, using their usual playbook, right? I mean, they're buying officials, they're using their recycled U.S. trade dollars to buy influence. But it was funny because in 2012, the people of Kenya, where I was pretty close to a lot of people and talked to them as much as I could. And the man in the street, if you asked him, oh, they love the Chinese. 10 years later, you ask those same people what they think, and I think they've begun to understand that there's a bit of a bait and switch going on.
Right.
That there is no free lunch, that the Chinese are buying their officials off. They had a minister of transportation in Kenya who was paid. I mean, everybody knows about it. So that's the thing about cell phones, right? It's all over the internet. So they paid, the going price for a minister level person in Kenya these days is about $45 million, which is what the Chinese paid him. He awarded a sole source contract to build the rail system there to the Chinese to the Chinese construction company, and then left office. Never prosecuted, but everybody knows that he did it.
Yes.
So it's like, this is the kind of stuff that goes on. But the people are beginning to figure it out. So that's the only bright sign, I guess, or positive thing that I would mention.
Well, Lloyd, you think that, as you just laid out, if you want to know what somebody's going to do, look what they've done. We're not hiding anything. The people around the world knows what's happening in the United States. I mean, Peter Schweitzer has written extensively about it. Miranda Devine as well, about the elite capturing of our elected officials. Trevor Loudon extensively. In fact, he's got a new series where his first part is focused on senators, and he highlights 15 senators that are card-carrying communists. And they are, it's almost like when they take their vow to protect our country against, and our Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. It's as if they have their fingers crossed behind their back. And so they're all being exposed. People around the world know what's going on. I question, though, a lot of focus right now is on Joe Biden. But when he was vice president, we had a lot of shenanigans going on. And I still ask the question, you got Joe Biden, who is incriminated with all this, capturing by the Chinese and money exchange, whether it's Ukraine. And we even have him on video talking about what he did in order to discredit a prosecutor using the people's money, our money, and withholding $1 billion, right, to get this guy out of investigating Burisma, which his son Hunter. And he had some business interests in. So the point is whether you're talking Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, we know that what she was doing with the Clinton Foundation, John Kerry, and God only knows who else. This all happened under the presidency of Barack Obama. How does Barack Obama skate free on this?
Wow, that's way above my pay grade, Bill. I really don't have a good answer to that.
Well,
but I mean, it's the same way that Barack Obama managed to, skate free for all his, I'm sorry, communist, socialist policies and thinking, and the people he's appointed. I mean, you look at what's going on in the Department of Defense right now. It's important to remember that under Barack Obama, he dramatically increased the number of people at the GS-15 level before he left office. Right?
Exactly.
People making $150,000 above in the U.S. government. And so all of those people are still so-called career civil servants now. And if he hired them, do you really think that we're going to get a different policy from out of those
Of course
people?
not. No.
So I mean,
it goes back
I'd
to what
like
we were
think
talking about, Lloyd. It's the infrastructure that was designed to produce a specific result. Obama was, in a sense, setting up the Democratic Party and not so much the party as much as the left and the other socialists involved in our government. And he was setting up some insurance. So by elevating them to a GS-15 level and a permanent bureaucracy class, they could not be fired. It's no wonder.
Exactly.
I mean, you're talking a deep state that's been, especially fortified, right?
And I honestly, I despair. If we don't get someone who's willing to come into office as a president and essentially just fire all these people,
right?
I understand they're all protected as civil servants, but if you don't just fire them or shut their agencies down and start over, I mean, how do you get rid of these people?
Exactly.
I don't think it's that easy.
No, you're exactly right. And I think Donald Trump found that out after 4 years of this insanity that seems to be the nightmare that would not go away. But you're exactly right. I mean, it's almost like, well, you're an attorney and you understand, I've been saying this for a long time, that we maybe need to treat our government and force it into a kind of a Chapter 11 type of
like a
scenario.
Receivership. Yeah,
right.
Well,
Exactly.
certainly start with the FBI and the Justice Department, right?
Right.
And maybe
Exactly.
the EPA after that, right? Yeah.
Right. And then you can start, like you do in all businesses that go Chapter 11, you start making those, in one sense, because it's about survival, they're easy decisions to make. But when you've got a family, in a sense, a family run business that's protecting their own kids, it's hard to fire them, right?
Yeah. No, it's really an issue. It's funny when I was in the federal government in those days, if a new president came in, regardless of change in party or not, it was expected that everybody at the assistant secretary level and above, anybody at a policy level, would submit a letter of resignation, right?
Exactly.
Apparently, that practice is no longer followed. So when Donald Trump came into office, basically he inherited everybody. I mean, then he had to go through one by one and replace this person and that person. It was obviously, that's 4 years right there.
Exactly. I was going to say,
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is where we are, and we're really kind of setting ourselves up in a way. The warnings of Abraham Lincoln are coming to haunt us. He said that if this, in so many words, that if this democratic republic was to fall, it would be from the inside out, not from the outside in necessarily.
Exactly. Well, and look at what Reagan said, right? Democracy is only ever loss of it is only ever a generation away, right?
Exactly. Well, and here's where we are, knowing this, and for you being able to have such a direct and personal look of one clear threat, but you can see how these other threats fit in a similar pattern, and the common target is America, isn't it?
Everywhere. Yeah. And I guess the other thing that's disturbing about what China's doing is then they have all these proxies that they've developed, right? Like Iran and then this what's going on between Russia and China. That's even more bizarre. Where that's headed, it's just really hard to tell, right? Some people, you see sometime recently in the paper, some people are thinking, well, the Wagner rebellion, spells problems for the China-Russia relationship, but who knows? I guess the theory there is it's a sign of Russian weakness, but who's China's alternative? They're going to have buddies like that in Asia, Russia, right? What else is there?
Well, the thing is, the way I look at it, Lloyd, and you know better, but I see that the Chinese have measured Putin and Russia, and they kind of have them right where they want them. They don't need to do anything. Just let Russia go ahead and fight itself out. If it destroys itself over Ukraine or entangles itself with America, it's one huge distraction and opens a door wider for China, the way I look at it. What do you think?
Absolutely. And of course, people forget that, but the Chinese always are taking the long view, right? So
Yeah.
they really are master chess players. So you got to give them credit for that. So as you say, if Putin goes by the wayside, that's fine. That's one less competitor for China to deal with in Asia. And, that's their most direct threat.
Exactly.
Or military competitor. So, yeah.
Well, we're talking with Lloyd Richardson, the China expert and diplomat during the Reagan years. Got to go to quick break. We've got more on the other side. Stay with us.
I am a non-attorney spokesperson representing a team of lawyers who help people that have been injured or wronged. Have you been diagnosed with cancer? Do you use pesticides in your job? Specifically Roundup. Roundup, made by Monsanto, contains a chemical called glyphosate, which has been linked to cancer. If you've used Roundup and you have cancer, you may be entitled to a cash award. Over $10 billion has been set aside to pay users of Roundup who've been diagnosed with cancer. Time is almost running out to file your claim. So if you've been diagnosed with cancer and you've used Roundup, call the legal helpline now. You could receive a free cash award and have your medical expenses covered. And time to file is almost gone, so please call right now.
800-890-7088. 800-890-7088. 800-890-7088. That's 800-890-7088.
Would you like to hear better for as little as 10 cents a day? Now you can with the all-new Audion hearing aids. The average hearing aid lasts about 3 years. Ours, at only $99 a pair, means you're paying as little as 10 cents a day to hear better. And to make things even better, we'll give you a 45-day money-back guarantee. Skip the doctor and get hearing aids delivered straight to your door. We've eliminated all the middlemen to offer you a factory direct price of only $99 a pair. Join over 300,000 people just like you who took advantage of our 45-day trial offer. Now you can hear better too for just 10 cents a day. Call now and order your $99 pair of Audion hearing aids with a 45-day money-back guarantee. Plus, get free 3 to 5 day shipping.
800-577-5319. 800-577-5319. 800-577-5319. That's 800-577-5319. Has your heater or air conditioner busted? Appliance broken? Computer crashed? Then you need an ARW home warranty. Home system and appliance repairs and replacements can cause stress and cost you thousands of dollars per year. With an A-plus BBB rating and a top-rated home warranty company on Consumer Affairs and Trustpilot, ARW Home provides superior service, featuring the industry's lowest service call fee. ARW Home has warranty plans that cover your kitchen and laundry appliances, heating and air conditioning systems, electrical and plumbing systems, and much more. Call 800-559-7562 to customize your plan. Plus, ARW has partnered with Azurian to protect your new and used tablets, laptops, TVs, and other home tech from accidental damage and wear and tear. All plans come with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Call 800-559-7562. That's 800-559-7562.
Hey, welcome back. I want to take a moment to thank all of you, our viewers, in supporting our campaign for truth and liberty. We're committed to this. We want to present the news with experts just like Lloyd Richardson and many others, as you know, to do a deeper dive and present the truth and nothing but. It's up to you to be motivated enough to take it to the next level. And so for those of you who have gone to BillMartinezShow.com and have clicked the donate button in support of our listeners-supported campaign for truth and liberty, I say thank you. We appreciate your confidence in us and trust in us to continue on this mission for your behalf. So when you click on the donate button, you will notice that our partner is Hill of Hope. This is a 501c3 public nonprofit organization. So when you donate, in our name to them, it becomes a tax deduction. So it's win-win for everybody. So thank you for your contributions, for your generosity. You are awesome, and I appreciate your support in furthering this mission. Our conversation with Lloyd Richardson, the China expert, continues. He was a diplomat during the Reagan years and a lawyer with global clients for over 20 years, an author as well. We've been featuring his books. You've seen them come up, throughout this conversation. Lloyd, number one question outside of the pending threat that the communist Chinese have on America, and I'll tell you, Americans and our audience is asking, China appears to be culpable and involved with COVID-19. And the question that remains is, was it something that they did intentionally, or was it an accident?
Well put. A good way to frame the question. I think it was deliberate.
Yeah.
And as I say to people who say, well, maybe it wasn't deliberate, I say, well, if it wasn't deliberate, let's at least say that the Chinese Communist Party is taking notes, right? We know, the funny thing is, I was getting on an airplane leaving a job in Africa in March of 2020 when all this was starting. It was before they started shutting the airlines down and travel, but this business had come out. And if you were reading what was online in March, it was all over the place. Everybody was talking about how China had done this and that back in October, November, December of the prior year, and all these things had gone on, and it was just like, it was a fact. Yes. It was everywhere. And then of course the narrative was just totally shut down, right? By the federal government and governments everywhere. So, but did they do it on purpose? Well, certainly it was intentional. This gain of function research, obviously, that was intentional.
Right.
Was the release intentional? It's so hard to answer that, because the Chinese, because they have 1.5 billion people, and because they are lovely communists, they don't really care all that much about how many of their own people they killed, because they don't have elections, right? So if they're unpopular, they're unpopular. It's the way they roll. So it is kind of ironic to me that it appears that China has had a much greater degree of difficulty than other countries in actually getting over COVID. It appears, at least, that over the past 12 months, they have continued to have outbreaks and lockdowns and all of these things. How much of that's true and why it's really happening, I don't have any insight into that. But the fact that it certainly did kind of come back to bite them a little bit if they did it on purpose. But I think more importantly, even if they didn't do the release on purpose, what have they learned from the way the Western world and the way governments everywhere reacted to this?
Exactly.
And totally destroyed democracy. Just like it was so easy, right?
Yeah.
So is there any downside for them to do this again? Really?
Well, they haven't had to pay any consequence other than they lost some of their own people, but big whoop for them, right? They look at their subjects as just that, not human beings. And I got to tell you, my theory on this, Lloyd, is that it quite possibly could have been an accident to start with, but what followed up was intentional. They sent infected human missiles, to the Mideast, right? And they sent them to Europe. Donald Trump stopped, planes coming in from China to the West Coast of America. He wanted to do the same thing to the East, but the Democrats blocked him, and they got in the way. And really, and then look what happened. Look at the outbreak that happened in the East Coast and New York particularly. So, this, no doubt to me, I believe that their spread, either to hide their ineptness. And the other thing is that we knew this early on and reported on this, is that Dr. Fauci had a team. He was the one that invested against Barack Obama's wishes. He invested in Wuhan to set up this laboratory. Right. He had his people there. They came back after, I think it was a little over a year, and said, these guys are a bunch of cowboys. They're reckless. We could have a problem there. And so here he has advanced knowledge, Okay. And he becomes the poster child, I'm science, Dr. Fauci.
Dr. Science, right.
What did he do?
Nothing good. Nothing
No.
good. Yeah, but in the first half of the show, Bill, we were talking about careerism and what an important role that has played in China's success in subverting our society over the last 30 years. Well, if he's not the poster child of careerism in the U.S. government, I mean, I even hesitate to call him Dr. Fauci, but if this is what we are dealing with in the U.S. government, I mean, what do we have to deal with? It's just a mess.
Well,
one thing I wanted to mention to you in terms of the travel that occurred at the onset of COVID.
Right.
One of the things that probably a lot of people forget about is the worst mortality rate in Western Europe was actually in Italy, if people recall.
Right.
And there was a lot of head scratching, like, why Italy? Well, what people may not have connected the dots on is that the Chinese have been very busy the last 10 years taking over the manufacturing industry domestically in Italy.
Right.
And they have a lot of workers there.
Well, it's up in the north, right? In the north part of Italy. Right,
Yeah,
exactly. That's what I was thinking. I said the Middle East, but that's where I meant in northern Italy. Yes, exactly.
So small wonder that they then suffered an outbreak and spread of the disease, and of course, and then there's depending on whether you believe it or not, supposedly they're a little more old. The Italians are a little older population than perhaps some other Western European countries. I don't know if that's true, but maybe some of the actual more deaths occurred as a result of the older population. But certainly the onset of the disease there, you have to link to the Chinese presence. I just don't know how you can ignore that.
Exactly. Well, and the other thing too, whenever we were trying to report on this, Lloyd, we were squashed by, Facebook, Twitter. If you said anything, that wasn't in agreement and comported with what the WHO said, then Zuckerberg and Facebook was going to, they canceled you immediately. And now we've gone full circle to where Joe Biden and the administration is negotiating with the WHO so that they would, in a sense, we would surrender our sovereignty to the WHO because they were so proven, they did such a great job that we're going to turn over the administration of any future pandemic to the WHO.
Right. And they get to decide what constitutes a crisis, right?
Exactly.
And an emergency. No, it's just ridiculous. And then I'm seeing lately that maybe what Uncle Joe will do will wait until just before the election or just after the election, to try to sneak this over the line. But how you can do these things without getting the Senate approval as a treaty, I'll never know. I mean, we didn't do it with the Iran deal. And so these precedents come back to bite you, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And whether it's Obama, and this is why many people believe that the Biden administration is the third term of the Obama administration, because you see a continuation of the obliteration of our Constitution and due process.
Does anyone else see Michelle lurking in the wings?
Well, my good friend Joel Gilbert did a documentary on this, saying that all else is failing, and of course he predicted it that she would be the candidate in 2020, but she keeps insisting that she's not the one.
Oh, Lord, I hope that's true. That's all we need. Gavin Newsom is bad enough, but yeah.
Well,
No,
yeah,
it's
and the
insane.
thing is they're in such desperation here because they can't even look to their vice president. Kamala Harris is the least liked vice president, I think, in modern history, Lloyd.
Bill, this is why I pray every night. I pray every night for Biden's good health.
Yes.
Because if you look at the alternatives in the next 18 months, yeah.
Well, and I think this is what makes Republicans a little bit nervous is in impeaching Joe Biden. Okay, you impeach him, now you get Kamala. So, you got to find some way to do a wholesale impeachment. Let's do a package deal. If we could do both of them, then maybe that might be worth pursuing, right?
Get down to the Speaker of the House, right?
Yeah, exactly. Who just happens to be a Republican. Oh, yeah, by the way.
Oh,
Well,
yes.
I'll tell you, we got about 40 seconds left here, Lloyd. I want to give you an opportunity to kind of summarize everything, direct our viewers and how they can be in touch, purchase your books, and to be in the flow of the know.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bill. So I have a website which cleverly is called LloydRichardson.com.
That is clever.
Easy to remember, right? And
Yes.
I have a China white paper on my website which covers a lot of the topics that we've talked about. And even, I will note, give people some hope. What can you do going forward? What 3 areas do we really need to focus on to try to change this situation with China? So that's on the website. And obviously you can buy the books from the website. So I'd be grateful if anyone would be inclined to do that. So
Exactly.
That's all I have to say, Bill, and I really appreciate your time.
Well, and we'll link the books and the information on our website at BillMartinezShow.com. Lloyd Richardson, cannot thank you enough. You're awesome. Thank you for all the information.
Thank you, sir. It was great talking with you.
You got to take care. Hey, for more information and to be a part of this mighty Martinez movement to return to God and to save our country, as I say, check it out, BillMartinezShow.com. May God bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you. Go and be blessed beyond your imagination. Thanks. Take care.